Tebow on in Denver, Detroit drops 2 in a row, and Ponder takes the helm for the Vikings. Alright, after weeks of chanting his name at every game, Tim Tebow finally takes the field as a starter in Denver. Turned out to be a win, but I'm not sure it was a great showing for Tim Tebow. How did you feel about that, Broncos fan?
Well, for the first 3 quarters, it was like nap time for me.
I was crying.
But ultimately, I had that voice go off in my head, like, Joe, change the channel. But, and then all of a sudden, here
That's
goes.
why they play all 4 quarters, right?
Yeah, you really do. You have to watch the whole game, and it was amazing. I'm glad that I didn't listen to that voice, and I watched what happened.
Right.
And it was pretty amazing,
But the first 3.5 quarters were pretty unwatchable.
Yeah, as a fan, there are a lot of things we need to worry about. I mean, Tebow got sacked 7 times.
Mostly his fault.
He missed a lot of open receivers.
Definitely his fault.
We could not convert 3rd down. So, I mean, there's some things that when we start facing teams that are not 0-5, we may have to worry about.
Right, if you weren't playing the Dolphins, you'd probably lost the game. He really needed some help in that.
Yes.
Even in that final drive when he was 7 for 9 or whatever, how many, he was pretty good on that final drive, but he had a couple of receivers make diving catches that were pretty spectacular to win that game, plus the onside kick, which he had nothing to do with, and the field goal in overtime, which he had nothing to do with. Now, I've been a Tebow supporter. I think he can probably play in this league, but he's got to play technically better than he did in the first 3.5. I don't care what his intangibles are. You can't build a quarterback system around intangibles. He's got to be able to sit in the pocket and hit people downfield, and he's got to be able to do it in the first 3 quarters. I mean, you can't just start with the final quarter of the game.
And he had more time to prepare for this than he would any other regular season game since that.
He had the bye week, yeah. It's absolutely true.
So, I mean, we'll see.
Well, he's going to have a tough go of it next week because he's facing Detroit, right? And speaking of Detroit, they've now lost 2 in a row. They're 5-2. What does that say about their chances to make the playoffs? Personally, I think it's going to be a tough road for them. What do you think?
I think, they're going to shrug it off and they're going to be okay.
They're going to be okay.
I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for them to finish with a record of 10-6. Right?
We'll see. Right now, this year,
they got some tough teams ahead. They still got Green Bay twice.
Yeah.
They got to play the Bears again.
Mm-hmm.
They got San Diego. Mm-hmm. They have New Orleans. They've still got the Raiders. They've still got Minnesota in there. So it's going to be tough for them to finish 10-6. Now, I was riding high on Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not a Detroit fan.
Right.
But the way that they played the last couple of weeks, the way they dropped the games, their defense is not playing as well as it could be. Jovin Best is out for who knows how long. Stafford went down with an injury. Now he's day-to-day. It's a high ankle sprain, so he's probably going to play next week. But it's just one more area where he may be that fragile that he's not going to finish out the season.
Well, I think with anything, it's basically the Detroit Lions are getting a taste of adversity. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond to this. And
they've never been in this position before.
They've never been. Well, they've been in horrible situations. They've been 0-16 before.
They've never been trying to hold on to a playoff run.
No, they never have. But at the same time, let's see what the team's about. I mean, before we basically count them out, they lost 2. Let's see how. They face my boys, and I ain't gonna say nothing, but they may get a win. But ultimately,
I'd love to see Tebow take down the Lions next week.
I'm sure you would.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But ultimately, right now, you know what I mean? It's too early to basically say that, hey, the Detroit Lions are going to fall on a grenade and that's it for their season.
They're done, man.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the Detroit Lions finished 3rd in that division. And sticking in that division, we're going to move on to the Minnesota Vikings. And Ponder has taken over as quarterback for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going on there?
Man, you look at how Christian Ponder played, damn, he should have been in there a few other games, and I feel bad because
He put up 27 points against Green Bay, right?
I was totally a supporter of McNabb until I started hearing some things. I know not you, but until I started hearing some things about him not preparing for games, and this is both in Minnesota and in Washington, and I do remember seeing all them basically close-ups on that playbook on his forearm, and it's sad when you look at that because I wouldn't think that.
I think he's just I think McNabb has just always had too much of a sense of entitlement, and he's been a whiny baby anytime somebody criticized him. And you know what? If he were a good quarterback, if he could still play, he'd still be in Philly. Philly wouldn't have let him go. The Redskins wouldn't have let him go. He wouldn't have been on his 3rd team in 3 years. Now he's benched by that team, and I think he's pretty much done. He'll be a veteran backup for somebody, and he'll probably be able to give somebody some good advice if he can get the chip off of his shoulder. But I think it's a good thing to have Ponder in there now. They're going to do a lot better with Ponder going down the stretch than they would have with McNabb.
It's just weird, when I always think about, basically I always ask McNabb, what's going on? Well, I expect to be the starting quarterback. or I'm not done. I got more years. Man,
it just shows a disconnect with reality.
Apparently so, because damn.
Yeah. He's older than I am, and I couldn't be out there quarterbacking the Vikings. I don't care if Adrian Peterson is on your team or not. You got to have a better quarterback than Donovan McNabb under center.
I can't really say much. I feel bad. I'd like to defend my boy, but if other veterans and other people that are his colleagues are saying that he's not doing what he needs to do to prepare to be at that level or that position.
Yeah, 90% of the game is won before you even take the first snap, right? It's all in the preparation.
Yeah.
All right, so that's been our opinions. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Joe.
And this was Tuesday Morning Quarterback.
With beer.